I am live. You are live. So I'm doing a quick stream just to talk a little bit about Reclaim Press. It's something I have um, been wanting to work on, and kind of write about and play with. And it struck me that Taylor and I were talking yesterday. I guess I should give some formalities. I'm Jim Groom. With Reclaim Hosting, and Taylor is a colleague of mine, and we were talking about streaming more regularly. And so I wanted to do a quick stream to talk about my ideas for setting up a new service for Reclaim Hosting called Reclaim Press. And so, what is Reclaim Press? Reclaim Press is basically a WordPress as service um, setup, whereas we have essentially the same infrastructure that's running Reclaim Cloud. Is now we can essentially, what we're doing is creating a brand new cluster apart from our Reclaim Cloud called Reclaim Press. And on that cluster, which is in three different regions, right now it's in the US West, the US East, and Canada, we provide a very WordPress focused interface and infrastructure where people can come on and they can basically choose from a series of predetermined packages of creating basically cloud driven, high available, scalable WordPress instances. And that's pretty exciting. We do a lot of WordPress hosting. That's no surprise. I've been playing with WordPress for near on 20 years. I mean, it's still a lot of what we do, and I'm still kind of fascinated by it. And so I have been leading up to this by getting offloading some of the media from my blog, Baba Tuesdays, and from a site I've been running for years, DS106, to get them ready for the migration. At this point, the Reclaim Press is actually being set up. I set up DNS records today. The folks at Virtuoso, because like Reclaim Cloud, it's a Virtuoso product, are doing the final setup stages. So I may have it as soon as this weekend to start playing with. And that means start migrating sites over, start seeing it. And I was sold on Reclaim Press probably 2 or 3 months ago when I was in a meeting with the folks at Virtuoso, and they were talking about this is a new service that's coming out with Virtuoso 9. And we're on 8.02, and I didn't want to wait. And I was like, what would it mean to have a separate cluster where we could run WordPress and have that as another kind of service beyond Reclaim Cloud or Domain of One's Own or managed hosting? And so there it is. That's what we've done. Let me give you, I'm going to grab a couple of screenshots, and I want to show you some of the things that I've seen in that sales meeting that I kind of got excited about. And then I'll talk a little bit about what I'm going to start with and what I'm going to do. And we'll go from there. So hold on one second. As you can see, this was a very kind of like, oh, I'll do a stream. I haven't done one in a while, so it's always sometimes good to just go out and do it. So that's what I'm doing. All right, so here we go. So anyway, I'm going to share my screen and show you some screenshots from what I saw in this presentation. And then this presentation, I just grabbed some screenshots while it was happening. And I think you can see them kind of well. But you'll notice here, it says Virtuoso, like that would say Reclaim Cloud. And then here are your different WordPress instances. And one of the things that's nice about that is you can go to the dashboard for each of them, and here's your URL, and it will give you some data center information. And then here's a download. But this is a list of your various WordPress sites. And the thing I liked about it, particularly for folks, is you get a dashboard with the kind of analytics and details around your WordPress instance. But if you go beyond that, you actually get an overview. You can log into your WordPress. You can do file management in your WordPress. It will give you all the details around your versions, PHP, etc. You can edit, obviously, the environment name. You can stop, restart. And also, a dev environment comes as part of any new instance in Reclaim Press, which is pretty exciting. You'll see all the SSH database. The real difference here is when you set up a WordPress scalable instance in Reclaim Cloud, all you get is an environment. And that environment looks very different. To give you an idea, and I am going to give you an idea right now, I'm going to stop sharing this. And I'm going to show you what an environment in Reclaim Cloud looks like right now. So this will give you an idea of the difference and why maybe I'm excited about this. So let me put this over here, and then I'll share the two back to back so you can see. Okay, so here we go. So right now, if you wanted to set up a WordPress in Reclaim Cloud, this would be your experience. You would go, here's the list of Reclaim Cloud instances for me. And then if I wanted a new WordPress, I would go environment. No, I wouldn't do that. Actually, I would go to marketplace because it's easier. And then I'd search for WordPress. And then I would just click on probably the standalone, and boom, you'd click install standalone, and that would be there. Hey, Taylor, you joined.
How's it going?
Good. Nothing like giving you no notice. But I just figured I would get in after we talked. I was inspired. So
Awesome.
I'm just talking about the difference between WordPress in Reclaim Cloud versus what it would be like or look like in Reclaim Press.
Awesome.
So to do it in Reclaim Cloud, as you know very well, you would go into the installer, you'd close that, you'd install it. And then once you installed it, it would look something like this. This would be your WordPress instance, right? This would be your interface to manage it. Like, it's not like there's nothing there. I mean, there is a little bit of an add-on, but you really just get a line and a kind of app server. And unless you know how Reclaim Cloud works, it's not intuitive.
Yeah, and what Reclaim Cloud is ultimately giving you is tools into how to control Linux containers, basically. And one of those Linux containers happens to be a web server with a database that's running WordPress. And so the add-ons is some shortcuts, but it's not, designed front to back for just WordPress. It's designed to support almost anything, which is good and bad.
Yeah, it's the beauty of it. But like at the point where we're doing, a WordPress service, and I'll show you this. This is kind of what the interface will look like for a WordPress instance in Reclaim Press. You'll notice it is, as I said before, branded Virtuoso, but this is your product environment, which is the same thing as that little, like Taylor said, the container, with the database and all of that. But this is actually making it more WordPress kind of friendly. It's got the version, the PHP. It's going to tell you can get access to your files very clearly with file management. You'll get statistics. You can even get in there and manage your plugins. And that's a separate tab. Again, this is screenshots I took while the people were presenting. I have yet to get my hands on an actual production. But as I was saying earlier, Taylor, I'm excited because I just set up the DNS entries for our 3 clusters in the US East, US West, and Canada. So Reclaim Cloud or Reclaim Press is like moments away from happening. Cool. And so that's kind of why I was inspired to do this, to talk about, I'm really excited for this different kind of interface for WordPress and Reclaim in a cloud environment. But on top of that, I really want to get in there and test it out, moving stuff over. A couple of the other things that may or may not be interesting is very easy key access, although having used it for the DS-106 hack cleanup, not that bad. It actually worked kind of good. I'll be interested to see if we have those same gate issues we had previously.
Yeah, and it's just a security thing. The gate has tighter security than a lot of things. So I'm not an expert at it, but basically, if you use an older key like an RSA key, it's not going to work properly on the gate in every situation. Some situations, some not. And so we recommend that newer type of key. But even then, I find it simpler to just, in a situation like this, with when you're dealing with a company where they've given you a key, it's like, yeah, we've got workarounds for that.
Gotcha.
But
That's
it
nice.
it is kind of, this is kind of answering sort of one question for me, which is, you know, technology wise, my understanding is that this is really at the heart of it the same kind of technology that powers Reclaim Cloud in the
Absolutely.
benefits and of that, right? In that, like, it's containerized. I think I'm even recognizing, like, it was showing the PHP version and it said LLSMP with the same
Exactly.
icon. So I'm
Yep.
guessing that they're kind of basically taking what they've learned from Virtuoso platform as a service and kind of saying, here's another interface to that same underlying technology. But what's
That
great for us and for, I think, anyone who would use it is that we're already familiar with the underlying technology.
I absolutely 100%. And you can kind of see even the PHP version, like you're saying right there, like you do see signs of it. But I think like things I like about DigitalOcean very much and other, it's the interface, right? And the
Yeah.
interface for Reclaim Cloud is kind of a DevOps interface, even though
Yep.
it's GUI, it's not command line,
But
but
it's literally, that's what they pointed at, right?
yeah,
DevOps.
it
So
assumes that you're going to be doing this for a broad infrastructure, which we have, and
yeah.
it's worked great for us. Which is why to get this out in front of people who use or are familiar with WordPress, but not for familiar with Reclaim Cloud, to make it like it's a WordPress interface for your cloud instance. And
Hmm.
that's right. That's exactly same. It's gonna be a more recent version of the what they call the virtual application platform, the VAP.
Hmm.
It's going to be more recent. It's going to be, we're on 8.02. That one's
Yeah.
going to be on 9.01 or
Oh
9.02. So
wow.
we will see some, behind the
Yeah.
scenes, you and I will be able to see some differences that are coming when we finally upgrade the other one. But upgrading our existing infrastructure to 9 and everything that it entailed would have been would have slowed down getting this going.
Yeah.
And that's why I pushed for us to have a completely separate cluster.
Yeah, and like, I keep an eye on the, like, change logs of those, of the platform. Um and it's not changes in the way that you might expect. It's not like, oh, 9.0 comes with support for these applications. No, because ultimately, like, the applications are running in containers, so it kind of,
Yeah.
that doesn't matter as much. It's usually like small improvements to the interface, a lot of back end stuff for us. So those changes are good to make, and we're going to keep making. But, like, it's not like feature releases of WordPress, right? Like, it's not the same kind of um, updates. It's something that you carefully consider and say, what are we losing and what are we gaining when we make those moves. So
Now, a couple of things that I'm interested in once we do get our hands on it and can test it. And again, I think this literally could be within days, which I'm super excited about. I was actually thinking about the Reclaim Press while I was on vacation, which is a good sign. But like I was like, oh, I can't wait. Oh, I'm gonna get doing this stuff. But a couple of things they said that I want to see if they said that they have, we set up a WordPress multi-region. It's one of our setups. It's a special installer that we use. We pull through JPS, which is basically like the Jelastic. What does JPS stand for?
Jelastic Packaging Standard, I believe.
There you go. Well done. So we use the JPS, and then that sets up a multi-region instance of WordPress, which then we're able to run through Cloudflare and load balance and basically create high availability failover WordPress instances. This, from what I understand, and I'm ready to test it now, can do that with or without Cloudflare. So,
Oh,
like, it
interesting.
actually has basically one of your packages would be, you want a WordPress multi-region? Boom, one click install. It's a package. It has its own pricing. And the other thing is that within them, every WordPress instance, and we'll have to see if this proves true for the multi-region, has a dev environment created by default.
Wow.
So and then it also can automatically sync changes
Oh, dang. Okay,
depending
that's
from
huge.
the
Yeah.
dev environment. Like we're talking like light years beyond some of the stuff I mean, our Reclaim Cloud WordPress instances are solid and they have been great. They have sold us on the platform, to be clear. But like now that we're going to get this really kind of high end interface to
Mhm.
make all these things just out of the box, is really kind of exciting for me.
Yeah, it's really Installatron for WordPress in the cloud in a lot of ways, right? Like in that, you know, the dev environment thing is kind of like the synced environments you can do in Installatron. Sounds like that to me anyway. And yeah, it's very exciting and hopefully makes this stuff approachable as we for
E-
other people for
Even
as we get more familiar with it.
I'll
So
tell you, even down to the fact, like with Installatron, it has that WordPress admin login. So does Reclaim Press. When you
cool.
get to this interface, which I'm going to put up here, you're going to have a place where it's like just log in. You don't need to need to know your WordPress credentials, or still, if you know them, it's fine. You click from
Hmm.
here, and it will pull you right in. Plus, it has a really nice way of giving you all of the SSH database info, PHP info. It's really cleanly laid out up there. And then they showed me the plugins page, but I wasn't able to grab a screenshot. But the plugins page is now because it abstracts out all your plugins and it
Yeah.
shows you which ones are using how many resources.
Oh wow,
And like
that's
it
cool.
actually like breaks down
That's
your
something we
plugin
struggle with
usage.
on shared hosting, right? Like there are
Exactly.
there's like query monitor, but that's not always the full story. That's, you know, not always a very good picture of exactly what the problem is. And we'll see how this works, right? Maybe it's useful in some situations and not in others. I'm sure that's kind of how these things go, right? But that's really cool. Yeah, this also kind of one thing on my like rainy day Reclaim Cloud installer list was like I could easily make an add-on, I think. I haven't tried to use the one-time login plugin in WordPress
Oh
to make like a
yeah.
magic link add-on for Reclaim Cloud for WordPress specifically. Um, and I'm not going to do that because there'd be no reason to. So,
Okay, so can there but wait, there's more. So, from what I understand, it has a place cleanly, like Reclaim Cloud, but again, the interface matters here. SSL certificates, Git configuration. But the other thing is they have backups now, which is a separate add on in Reclaim Cloud built into the environment.
sure.
And you can have it back up across multiple regions.
Oh, cool.
So, like, it's not limited to the same region, like in Reclaim Cloud where it lives. You
Hmm.
can have basically region. You obviously you want your backups maybe in a different region in case that region has issues.
Hmm.
So, that's a very cool piece too. I want to experiment
I
with is
wonder too if we can control where those backup regions, or sorry, what regions backups could live in, because I could see it making sense to get different type of hardware, kind of like we do for Jet Backup, and saying, yeah, backups storage for, ReclaimPress is it's only in 3 regions, but the pricing is cheaper for storage because we're not running it on the same type of hardware. You know what I mean?
yes,
Like there's things that
exactly.
could make sense for us and for people using ReclaimPress potentially if we had that kind of control. Whereas right now, it necessarily is in the same hardware as Reclaim Cloud because a backup in that WordPress backup tool is really cool. I've shown some people that the one
Yeah,
that exists right now, but it's just a Linux container in the same region, and so you're going to get billed the same amount because from our perspective, it's the same. You're using the same chunk of our server. But
yeah,
if something like this would allow us to separate out, and I don't know that it does, to be clear, I'm speculating, but to say no, 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 put backup things over in this special, US backup one region where we have servers that have huge hard drives but
yeah.
don't have that much CPU power, and therefore we can charge less for them, something
I
like that.
agree. Yeah, I mean, and that would be good. Or even I would love to be able to push backups to S3, right?
Yeah, that
Like
would
that would
be
be another
that would be
thing.
awesome.
Like,
That's another thing that's on my we've talked a lot about like some
yeah,
clever ways we could leverage S3, and that was one on my list too. It was like I wonder, in a situation like a backup where you don't really care like does this take 3 hours, whatever, like that's
yeah.
fine. as long as it
Exactly.
works, you know.
So the other, so backups, Git configuration, which I'm not a, I don't know Git that well, so that's not something I understand. SSL certificates, I've had my run-ins with them. I understand them better than I once did, but still.
Have
But
my
all of this,
run-ins with them seems that's me too.
yeah. But I mean, all of this as part of that interface is really nice. The other thing they said, and it's kind of the last feature, and it was really exciting, is like they with their backup setup. So I guess maybe this is Linux based or it is built into the interface. Again, we have to test is you do the changes, right? And say you did something in within the last hour and you want to revert. Like they have like a timed, it's almost like timed where they've recorded the whole instance over the last X hours. So you can
Interesting.
pinpoint it back to like 45 minutes ago.
So now I am very curious about the actual underlying infrastructure, and also if any of this will come, some of this stuff will come um, to Reclaim Cloud as well. The reason I say that is that type of thing makes it sound to me like they're using file system level like snapshotting basically, which is a technology that is been like enterprise only for a while, but now we're seeing it in consumer stuff and we're seeing it in public cloud stuff too. But basically, what it does is you can imagine you got your computer, your Mac. In fact, your Mac does this if you use Time Machine.
Uh,
Um, and when you make changes to a file and you say, yep, I want to make a backup now, what it actually is doing is it's marking sort of like it's making like a hash of the state of all of your files. And then everything that happened since then, it can tell what's happened since then because of that hash that it made.
and revert it.
Describing it as a hash is not, I don't actually know like
It
what,
helps me.
but that's how I think of it anyway.
Yeah.
And so what you wind up with is sort of a differential, like, okay, we have like a picture of what it was like at this time, and we know what's changed since then. So to get back to here, we don't actually need a second copy of that data. We can just undo everything that's happened, and bam, we're here now.
That's
And there are
cool.
file systems that do that just at the file system level, which is really cool because you don't have to build that into, say, like WordPress or something. It can just happen. I bet they're using something like ZFS or some kind of file system that does that. And this is another one of those things that containers can make easier because of a lot of things, but the way files get stored in containers, you could do that on a container level too. So my point is, yeah, I'd be willing to bet that they're leveraging that for maybe their dev stuff too, the dev environment
And
thing.
think about how huge that is for us in terms of, some of these high availability clients that, make a bad change. And rather than saying, well, you got to revert from the night before, it's like
From
you can revert
yesterday,
from
yeah.
10 minutes ago.
Yeah, and
Really.
the cool thing about that is also it's way more efficient on storage, right? So it's using snapshots, the cost of that storage is just simply what is your total storage usage minus or plus, sorry, what has happened since your last snapshot. That's it's not, if you have 9 files and then you snapshot and you add 3 files, your storage usage is 12 files.
Yeah,
It's not 9 plus 12, so
exactly.
it's kind of big. And actually that example isn't great because where that really makes a bit of difference is when you're deleting files. So anyway,
So
but
scratch that example from the record.
well, I think it's accurate. I'm just saying like it's maybe not the cooler like tech example, but anyway, and I'm not an expert at it. I've only kind of read about and seen this in implemented in like certain storage systems basically. And then again, notably Time Machine has started working this way in the last 2 years. If you use that to back up your Mac, it actually uses
Can I
snapshots to
tell
make
you
this stuff
about
easier.
my
I was
I'm
gonna say, I
not.
actually know that you don't.
I'd
Or
rather
maybe you
not
do
talk
now.
about that. I'm happy. Don't make me sad. So we got 5 minutes left. The one thing I did want to talk about in that 5 minutes is the other thing they let you do, and this will be interesting to play with, is they let you set up basically like sell packages. Like when you come into Reclaim Press, you're going to be presented with, here's a couple of recommended packages to get started with Reclaim Press, like a straight
Cool.
up basic WordPress blog, you know, X
Hmm.
amount a month and you're gone. And then it can scale up to this. And if you need more storage, it's this. So it'd be interesting looking at that. But as we talked about with Bonnie Russell from Michigan State in our community chat on Wednesday,
Hmm.
it opens up all sorts of possibilities for integrating like more sophisticated WordPress
Yeah.
packaging. A lot of people love this, from what I understand, for stuff they're doing with WooCommerce. WooCommerce isn't our basic, that's not our focus. Like we don't
Hmm.
get a lot of commerce oriented sites, but the idea is it can deal with kind of, you know, WordPress sites that are doing more than the average and are
Yeah.
kind of resource intensive, kind of like a Cbox, you know, kind of like a Pressbooks instance, potentially, like kind of like other instances that might need more resources or might be more kind of, I don't know, institutionally important so that it's got to stay up.
Yeah, I'm really interested too to see what this will allow. Like the templates is interesting to me because if it works like Installatron templates or anything like that, that could be huge, right?
Yeah.
Because those are so easy to make and maintain compared to like a custom installer.
Yeah.
So that would be super cool to see, like, okay, can we have a commons in a box, commons in a
Exactly.
box, open lab, H comments, like can we do those
Exactly.
types of things? Obviously WordPress multi-site, but maybe WordPress multi-site plus here's
Yeah.
some plugins that we recommend at Reclaim that you consider using. Um, you know, even simple things too, just like here's a WordPress site that's set up with things like Insanity to make your maintenance life down the road a little bit easier. Not that that's hard to install yourself, but I'm saying like a suite of plugins like that. Um, and then the final one that I don't know if this would actually be a template thing necessarily, but I am really interested to see like how can we at Reclaim make as easy as possible the transition from I've got a site on shared hosting to ReclaimPress. Not from like an upsell perspective, but from a perspective of I want people to be able to understand if this is something they can benefit from or not, right?
Yeah.
Like I want it to be something where and I don't know that we'll be able to get there right away, but ideally it'd be like sign up for an account, follow our 4-step guide, and you have a version of your WordPress site running over there and you can see like, is it faster? Is it meaningfully
Exactly.
faster? Do I care? And maybe even go back, like, because we do from time to time get the question of, hey, we're expecting like this, there's a conference and
We got it
we're
yesterday from one
yep.
of our clients, right?
Yeah, and in that case I think they only had expected traffic for a week and we're like, well, you could move it for a week, but it's kind of a lot of work for you to move it there and back. Um,
But if you
and
could simplify that,
if we could
then
simplify that, and I think that Reclaim Press might be part of that puzzle, right? In terms of, well, step one is actually running WordPress should be easy and managing it should be easy. And then step two is, can we build tools on top of it or
yeah,
workflows or document something? And maybe it's as simple as like, look, we recommend you just use Updraft or something. And that's cool. We already have documentation on that. But I would like to get even easier than that if possible. Like I know there are WordPress plugins that can do things like you install the plugin in both places and it will sort of directly transfer between them, which
that's
is
cool.
interesting to me.
Yeah,
I don't know how well they work, but that
I like
something
that.
like that would be cool.
I agree. No, I appreciate that, Taylor. So we have a minute left. The other good news is Brian Mathers and I have an appointment to talk, and Pilot's coming to talk about art for Reclaim Press. And I already have my idea. It's like the vinyl pressing factory, where you have the vinyl
Cool.
and this is where it gets pressed. And it's kind of like this 1950s Cogswell Cogs industry from the Jetsons, like futuristic pressing of WordPress instances. And so that's the WordPress, the Reclaim Press. So
Yeah, I like it. That'd be cool. I'm excited to see, as always,
Yeah, he's amazing.
where he'll go with that.
And I think I do these products just so we can talk about art.
Yeah.
All right.
What's your business strategy? Mostly we innovate products so that we can get someone to make art for it. We
Yeah,
can make Brian Mathers art for it.
we make art, damn it.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad we did this. It will be an easy way to blog about preparing for this because I want to get down to it and start creating the Reclaim Press because I know when we're doing DNS, we're getting close. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited what we can do to make, again, just as always, like, I'm excited what we can do to make this pretty technical. This kind of infrastructure is getting pretty advanced. How can we make that easy for folks to benefit from? So
And think about it. Like we're talking about like full blown enterprise level
this
WordPress
is like what
instances.
WP Engine does. That's what this is kind of a competitor to in some ways.
Exactly. Yeah, and the whole point, and they do a great job. I'm
Yeah,
loving
yeah.
the WordPress offload media plugin they created. Like I'm using that to offload stuff to S3 and think about it. And that's a good plugin. Like it does a lot and it solves a lot of the issues we have. And so if we could be in a situation where you put a school in a scenario where it's like, oh, you want to run a high availability multi-region instance, couple of clicks.
Yeah, you don't need us.
Crazy.
Log in here,
Yeah.
do it. You don't need high touch
Yeah.
for it necessarily. That would be a cool place to be.
I agree. All right. Thank you very much for joining, Taylor. And thank you if you were or if in the future you will be watching Reclaim Press for life.
See y'all.